It looks like making you do some homework about that.
Right.
It should be fun.
Sure.
But I will let him take it from here. We thank you very much for being here.
All right. Thanks very much. First of all, you'll notice on the posters it says something about me being a NASA rocket scientist. Well, that is true. My presence here tonight has nothing to do with NASA, so if you find anything that I say to be controversial or not to your liking, the U.S. Space Agency had nothing to do with it. I'm here actually as an author and a futurist, and I'll be working with the Energy Generation Conference on Thursday, Thursday. I don't know, they've got me speaking 17 times while I'm here. But I am happy to answer any questions that you have outside of the lecture about my day job with a 4-letter agency involved with putting humans into space. But that is not what we're here to talk about. And as I said, I'm happy to talk at length about that later. I do spend a lot of time in my lectures around the world talking about the creative process and how quickly the world is changing. And I could think of nothing better at a get-together at a science institute like Gateway to Science than to talk about this creative process and how we come up with new ideas. Because we always seem to be a little bit stunned about the pace of science and how people keep inventing new stuff. And I want to talk to you about how you can do that too and how some scientists work to try and get the juices flowing. So the first thing to do is to recognize what it is we've got to work with. We are biologically the same as all of our ancestors. We haven't been doing much evolving in the last couple of thousand years, but we live a whole lot better because of our science and our technology. So we have been repatterning this brain up here, and it's pretty amazing to see how small it is. So the first exercise I want you to do is to take your left hand and put it on your head like a baseball cap. Spread the fingers way out. Now watch what I do. I'm going to take my baseball cap off, and I'm going to keep it in the right shape, and I'm going to mold it around my right hand. I'd like you to do the same thing. So if you do this correctly, now your right hand should be roughly the same size and shape as the outside of your head. Right? So I made a mold, and I've molded my hand. That means that if I go from the outside in, I'll go from the hair to the scalp, through the skull, through what's called the pita matter and the dura matter, and now if I do this trick one more time and I mold my left hand with my right hand again, I'm going to get something about this big. This big. This big. It is the size and weight of a small grapefruit. Okay? This is all that Einstein had to work with. This is all that I get to work with. This is all that our great leaders of the world get to deal with. It is a small little organ that weighs 2% of the mass of the human body. And the really deep part is all this gray stuff on the outside, which is half of the weight of the brain in humans. Most other animals don't have this gray part on the outside. That's where we do all our creative thinking. It's called the neocortex. It's 1% of the mass of your body. Anybody want to guess how much of the food you just ate and how much of the oxygen you breathe is dedicated to this 1% of your body? Who's got a guess? How much do you think goes there?
65%.
65%? A little high? What do you think? Just scratching. Okay, how much do you think goes there? 50%. No? What do you think? 35%. Well, you guys are getting on the right track. It is? Go ahead. No, 100's too high. No, 20%. 1% of your body is getting 20% of the oxygen and 20% of the sugars that you digest, which is amazing. You're giving 1/5 of everything that it takes to run your body, to breathe and to move around, to run your endocrine systems. 1/5 of everything to run your body is going up here to try and run this organ that is unique in the animal kingdom because this is where we create plants. We're the only animal that doesn't have to evolve because we adapt the environment to meet us. We don't adapt to meet the environment. We move to this part, North Dakota, for gosh sakes, It's cold up here. Anybody want to go out there without their clothes and their parkas and stuff? No, we created technology to adapt to this environment because there's reasons why we want to be here. And we're the only species that lives from pole to pole, and we live under the sea, on the surface of the land, under the land, up in the air, and in my generation we become a species that lives in space. There is no other animal on Earth that does that, and we do it all because of the brain, all right? So, we do it from generation to generation by creating new stuff, right? I'm getting a camera. New stuff like video cameras, all right? So the new stuff comes from the creative process, and that's what we're going to talk about here in the little exercise we're going to go through to try and show you how do we get to think outside the box. So the first thing I'd like you to do is I want you to help me with this. Would you please pick a number on that line somewhere? Just write it down on your sheet of paper. Pick a number, one number only. Okay, everybody got their number written down? So I can check this answer? You got a number written down? Okay, you got a 9? Whoa, because I was about to ask, how many people put a 9 down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many people put a 0 down? 3. Okay. Well, we have on the order of 60, 70 people in here, and 1/5 of all those people should have picked one of the two numbers at the end of the line. Okay? Which would be about 15 people in here should have gotten one of the numbers on the end of the line. Why didn't we take numbers on the end of the line? Because instinctively we don't like going to the edge. We like the comfort zone we've got. We like the patterns we have. We just don't like being at the edges of anything, let alone human thought. Which is why this creative process is so hard to get into, because we don't like getting out of the situation we're in. Unless necessity, as we say, is the mother of invention. Until finally we get pressured into getting agitated enough up here to do some work in this brain, start spending more oxygen and more sugar to think a little bit more and make new patterns. Now, if you ever watched younger kids as they're learning how to speak, learning how to walk, learning who mommy and daddy are, learning not to cross the street until it's safe in both directions, all this stuff they got to learn, that's building patterns in here, and it takes a lot of energy because they're basically moving a lot of cells around to connect neurons together. That's what we do when we make memories. And that's why kids sleep so much. They have all this energy and then they sleep. Energized and they sleep. They're doing an awful lot of work that we don't do later. Once we learn that a green light means go, we're pretty comfortable, right? We have that pattern forever, and we don't have to think about traffic until, say, we get to Toronto, Canada, and I'm in the lane and the green light starts flashing at me, all right? And I don't have a pattern for that, and now I'm going to stress because I got to spend energy thinking about what does a flashing green light mean, all right? Now you can see my tension level, my energy level go up because I have to create a solution to a flashing green light. Anybody know what a flashing green light means in Canada?
Canada?
In Canada? It means you have the advanced left turn. It's like the left arrow. Right? So they don't have to put up a new light, they just flash the green light. But you have to know that pattern. And until you do, you've got stress, okay? So what I wanted to show is that we like being in a comfortable zone. We don't like thinking at the edge. We don't like challenging ourselves. And that's, unfortunately, the entirety of the creative process. Okay? So we're going to create something. And we're going to create something very, very simple. And I'm going to use this exercise to show you how you can get more creative when you do that. Okay? So you've all got a sheet of paper, and I walked in here with a coffee mug. Right? A coffee mug has a small chance of spilling. So how do I keep it from spilling? The nominal plan is that I'm going to put a lid on it. Right? Now these lids, I have a collection, and I think it's the only collection in the world. I have 89 different types of coffee cup lids that have different mixes of things that you can put into the coffee cup lid. And if you really examine one of these closely, you'll find that it's just a thin sheet of plastic that they've sucked down in a vacuum mold. There's only one step in making this thing. Put the plastic in, and they go thunk, and out comes the coffee cup lid. Right? It's about as simple a product as you can make, and yet I had seen so many creative ideas about how to make a coffee cup lid. So there's a market out there, given the number of companies that are making coffee cup lids. It's a very useful thing, and there are lots of reasons why people have different types of them. What I'd like you to do is to consider getting into the coffee cup lid business. Would you, working alone, please don't collaborate with other people. That means don't talk to other folks. Would you write down ideas of what you might put into your coffee cup lid, like for instance a hole to drink out of, right? You know, or something to seal it against the cup. So think of some of the stuff that you would put into your design. And we're going to go through this in stages because we're going to try to get a little more creative in each step. Okay? So start writing and put down some ideas of how you're going to create your coffee cup lid. One of these days, I'm actually going to go form a company out of all the great ideas that groups just like this have come up with, because I find something new every single time. Anybody surprised at how small the brain is? I was. Yes, I did. So keep writing until you think you've pretty well exhausted the ideas of what you want to put. At which point you just sort of raise your hand and gently I'll get a sense of when we have sort of reached our limit of what can go in a coffee cup lid. Creating? Need to see some hands. When you're done creating, just raise a hand so I know we're done. Okay, we got some people still writing here. Good. Thinking. We're stretching this one. It's so quiet in here. It's making for really good video, isn't it there? Yeah.
It helps.
Okay, we're starting to scratch our heads. No questions. No, you're in charge of your own company. I'll answer one question. What do you got? Oh, you're done. Oh, you're done. Okay. Okay, so how many people need more time to finish creating their coffee cup lid? All right, we need about a minute more. Just take just a minute because we want to move on and show the other parts of the exercise. So if I could get each of you to help me, please. Would you take one of these and hand it to each row going back? One of these to each row and just let people look at them. Just walk on back and yeah. And he's already seen this exercise, so he doesn't need, he's seen these things. I'll show him another. So if you get one per row, and then if we run out, then we'll hand some back to that. And I want you to just take a look at these. Would you please draw a line across the page right now under the last idea that you had? So we should have a list, and then at the bottom of it, there'll be a line going across. So now, what's happening is most of you are about to see a coffee cup lid. You're going to observe some features on it. Some things that are on just standard. I think this one comes from the Dart company. And there's all kinds of things that are molded into this that you might not have thought of. You feel free to copy them, put them down on your list, or to create any new idea based on what you just saw that got you thinking about something you might have forgotten before. And you're going to add that to your list. So put those below the line, any new ideas that you think of because you're looking at a coffee cup lid and you're not thinking about something else. Maybe, for instance, the legal warning that coffee is hot, which is on every coffee cup lid of the 89 manufacturers I've seen. It's the only common thing, believe it or not. So there's things on there that people have thought to put on that might get you thinking about stuff that you could steal from them. You know what they say? If you steal from one person, that's plagiarism, and if you steal from everybody, that's called research. So steal from as many ideas as you like from that one. All right, and while you're at it, let me just show you two other examples. Okay? Think about features that you might put on your coffee cup lid. Okay. Compared to the one I just showed you, there's something dramatically different about these. Okay? So, when you think you're done with the new ideas, would you raise your hand, please? We'll go through the same trick. Draw a line under the last idea you had. All right? Now, if you are a young lady like you. Would you please imagine yourself to be an old man? If you are an old man, would you imagine yourself to be a young lady? If you are a young man, would you please be a woman, say, in her 30s? If you're a woman in your 30s, would you imagine yourself to be a younger man? Okay? And if you're anybody else, imagine yourself to be anybody else. Put yourself completely into somebody else's shoes. So if you're an old guy, you are now wearing ponytails and ribbons and sequins. You've got My Little Pony, okay? And I want you to think about, for that person, have you designed the right coffee cup lid? And what might you add in to expand your market and think about the other folks that might want to be part of your coffee cup lid extravaganza? Okay. Everybody done with imagining themselves to be somebody else? Are you all done? Raise your hand if you think you're ready to draw a line. A couple more ready to draw lines. Let's give them another 30 seconds or something. There's no grade on this, by the way. This is just an illustration. A point. Okay. Now, let's draw a line. Now this room is a little crowded to do the next trick, which normally I have people everywhere change seats. But would you all please stand up and face the back of the room and step a couple of steps towards the wall. So back towards the wall, stand and face the other end of the room. Different perspective, different place. Now start thinking. Did I think of everything in that coffee cup lid? Stand. Yeah, standing. Does that make a difference in my coffee cup lid? I'm facing a different direction. I just moved with it. Imagine that you're that young girl that just moved, or that you're that old man that just moved, or that you're a slightly younger man that just moved, or whatever. And start writing down ideas if you think of them. You can gradually, when you think you're done, just turn around and sit down in your chair. Ah, you folks are giving up too soon. All right, that's okay. No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Oh man, everybody's sitting down. I guess we didn't get too many there. All right, so now when you start collaborating with your little group, start sharing, draw a line and say, that's what I got to. Start talking about the ideas you came up with and see if collectively you can come up with one or two new ideas based on something you just, one of your group just wrote down. So if you don't have a group, just work up and down your aisle. Talk with each other. I'm expecting to hear a lot of buzz here. And see if, compare ideas and see if there's something that gets you thinking about, maybe there's something related to that that I can grow with.
I want to hold in my pocket. Because I don't like hot coffee. I think it'd be nice if they had a handle. Different colors.
What are you doing? We're done.
Maybe when there's
Okay. Let's line under the last bit of the list. If you came up with something new, write it down. All right? So now the next trick is I want you to count the numbers of ideas that you had first, thinking alone. Then what did we do next? I handed out an example, right? So the next block, the next line is going to be how many ideas did you get? And if it's 0, just write down 0. Then we did the change gender and age thing, right? Then we did turned around, and then we worked as a group. So we had 5 different blocks of ideas. I just want you to know how many ideas you got in each block. So you should have a series of numbers written down based on your ideas. Okay? So, working alone, hold up number of fingers of the ideas that you got. If you got 5, then it's 5 fingers. If it's 10, then it's 10 fingers. All right, so I'm sort of statistically averaging. We can look around the room here, and I'm seeing that 4-ish, about 4, somebody got a whole bunch of them over here. I'm going to want to talk to you afterwards. That's all right, 4-ish is sort of the average. We got between 1 and 7 ideas working alone. Okay. Then you all took a look at a real-life example, and there were probably some things you forgot based on your present experience. Looking at the example, how many ideas showed up once we took a look at a real example? How many new ideas did we get? We got some 0s, we got some 3s, we got a couple of 2s, 1s. I'm going to say, and we got 10. 10 ideas. I'm going to say it looks sort of like a 1. So it sounds like we know what a couplet is. Then we changed gender and age. How many new ideas showed up? 1s and 2s, we got some 0s, we got 1s. Another 1 or 2 per person on average. Then we stood up, we faced the back, we moved to the side a little bit, we changed our perspective. Any new ideas? 0s, 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 1s. Okay, not too many on that exercise. Normally what happens is I actually have people move and sit down and get comfortable again. The act of standing and shuffling wasn't actually a good example here. Most of the time, that's sort of comparable to changing age and gender, just changing your room, your position in the room. Lastly, we got together as a group, we looked at each other's ideas, we got a discussion going, we started comparing ideas, and we sort of wrote down anything new that sort of flourished as a result of that discussion. How many new ideas came there? 2. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. On average, seeing as I've got some 0s out there, it's on the order of 1. But in each case, this group collectively started seeing more stuff. You'd sort of said, I'm there, I'm done, and then I got you into a different mindset. And in every case, what I was trying to do was to get you out of the mindset you were just in and add a little bit of stress and a little bit of energy to get you thinking out of your norm. And that you realize that that's actually a proactive exercise, to think about being somewhere else, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. This is why travel is so important. This is why experimentation is so important. Let the world teach you something that you weren't quite prepared for. Allow yourself to be shocked. Our cultural training, as I work with our international partners, we actually get sensitized to the idea that our way of thinking about the world is not necessarily the other guy's way, which is really good when you try to find collective solutions to really difficult problems. And they defined culture this way. They said culture is that set of rules that you have that you don't know you have until somebody breaks them. How do you know that somebody breaks them? Well, normally when I talk to people, I talk about this far away. Now, if you and I were in Russia, I'd be talking to you like this. Now, is that a little bit uncomfortable? Yeah? Right? I just broke your cultural rule because we're used to speaking this close, all right? Other people speak really close. Some people don't take baths, okay? But it's all normal, all right? It's all normal, and you have to get used to that. But breaking that chain of thought is what's so important. So what I was trying to do with you today was just illustrate that something as simple as a coffee cup lid, which is about the simplest thing that one can invent. A, there are lots and lots and lots of things you can do with it. And B, you can be creative in something as simple as this, which means that in the complex things like energy solutions, healthcare, and all the other things that we have to deal with, there are so many creative solutions left to be found, but we have to break out of our past thinking. These are some of the things that people have come up with: a scent strip, a temperature indicator, colors, refundable, returnable plastics. A lot of it has the recycling statement on it. Biodegradable, see-through, so you can see what's in there. A little clear stuff. Universal size, one cup size fits all. I mean, there's all kinds of neat ideas that people have come up with along the way. And when we're done, I'll happily pick up some of the ideas you folks had. Let me just show you some of the interesting stuff that's up there. There's a sippy lip that is on some of these. I just want to bring out my laser now. There's advertising that shows up on a lot of these. There we go. Advertising. There's the company that makes it. A lot of these sip holes have a place. This one doesn't, where I have to tear off a piece and I'm left with a piece of plastic when I'm done, right? Others, see, lift this tab, that tears off. McDonald's isn't very good at this, but others either don't have a tab at all, they've got a little sippy lip here. Notice that there's places where you can dent to make people know whether there's cream or sugar or decaf in there. Those are kind of nice, as opposed to some where you have to write on the top of the lid. But here, for instance, is one where there's got a place to retain the tab that you pull. But we don't like the ones that you rip out of here because that's a sharp edge that cuts your lid. So there's some advertising. Notice every one of them has the hot, be careful, warning, this is hot, except this one. That's the only one I've found that doesn't have it. Some of them tell you what size it is, how to recycle it. There are some that tell you how to reorder it, what part number it is, so you don't get the same cup again. There's all kinds of neat stuff on these. And let's see, where's the really great ones? Okay, so this one's got a pocket where after you sip, the coffee goes back in and there's the vent hole. So it drains back in, you don't have coffee coming out the vent hole. Isn't this great? I mean, this is just the same sheet of plastic doing the same function. Look at all the great ideas people have. Just thinking about it long enough and hard enough. And there's one that has, I love this one. That one, you never get your lips all the way in. You are forced to put your lips on these little ribs. You aspirate the coffee in. It makes a little mist coming in and cools the coffee so it never burns your lip. Cool. This is a two-piece lid. There's one piece, there's the other piece. I came to find out this lid cost them 7 cents, but boy, what a great one. Because there's the vent hole on this piece, there's the vent hole on this piece. You notice how they don't line up? There's a little pocket in here. All of the coffee that slurps out of the venting never goes anywhere, never gets out of it. Meanwhile, there's the sippy lip, which will never cut you, and there's the little plug that fits in the sippy lip so you can completely seal your cup of coffee. Isn't that a great design? Don't you wish you thought of it? And we're making 7 cents on every one of these coffee cup lids that comes out. So that kind of stuff comes along. There was one farther back that I saw go by. Ah, yes, this one. Notice that I've got different shapes here. That's for your artificial sweetener, your half and half, your skim milk. There's different things that you can pack onto the lid and carry it to the person that wants to mix their own coffee. Cute. And each one has a different way to fit in on the lid. So there's all kinds of really, really clever things we can do. I'm almost out of time, but I want to give you an example to show you how ingrained our thinking is. I'm going to give you 3 very short stories about Australia. I am then going to ask you a completely unrelated question to the country of Australia. There is nothing between these two. The answer to that question could be any one of about 1,000 different things, and 40% or more of this room will get the same answer because of our culture. Okay? Just to show you how ingrained this is. So let's go to Australia. We go up to the Northern Territories, and there is a very famous place called Ayers Rock, which is going back to its Aboriginal name of Uluru. It is this giant orange stone. It's a big mountain with a big flat top. You know the one I'm talking about? It's a gorgeous thing. You see it in all the postcards. It's been in a lot of movies. You know what I'm talking about? Big rock, sacred to the Aborigines. It sticks up out of the desert north of Australia. They film it at sunrise and sunset. It is impossible to climb. It's a very sacred place. And it makes it on every postcard and every movie about Australia. Ayers Rock. You got this in mind? We now go down to Sydney, and we head on out on a tour of the Blue Mountains to see this wonderful rock formation called the Three Sisters. You get out there, world's steepest train is out there, you see these great granite formations, but when you buy your French fries, called crisps down there, or chips, excuse me, and then you are sitting there on the bench eating them, you are not surrounded by sparrows, you are not surrounded by pigeons, you are not surrounded by seagulls, you are surrounded by parrots. There are Australian king parrots that are about this big. They're crimson and green, and there are parrots everywhere. Thousands of them pecking at your feet. Nothing but parrots. Okay. Now we go back into Sydney. We're going to get a souvenir on the way home. We want to buy one of those beautiful opals. It turns out they're making them really cheaply these days by slicing the opals in really thin slices and putting them between glass. So you get this giant rock for no price at all. And it's really pretty. And then you look around the jewelry store and you say, wow, the emeralds and the rubies and the sapphires are all really cheap too. And you know how they make them really cheap? Because they make them in the lab out back. Because they're making artificial emeralds and rubies and sapphires these days because it's just quartz with stuff in it, and the quartz is what's in your watch, right? And they know how to grow the big crystals, so they make emeralds and rubies and sapphires. And so when it says genuine ruby, it's just artificially made. It's genuine, but it's not natural. Okay? So you get the big rocks, bigger gems than you ever imagined buying. So here we are in Australia, and we have mammoth-sized gems for a really cheap price. Imagine, what does a big jewel cost? You go out to the Three Sisters, and there's parrots. You go up to Ayers Rock, and there's this big, beautiful thing sticking out of the ground. Got those visions of Australia? Here comes your unrelated question. Would you all please immediately think of any old vegetable? All right? How many people here thought of Brussels sprouts, broccoli, beans, peas? How many people here thought of a carrot? Yeah. Why did we think of a carrot? Why did we think of a carrot? Orange. Yeah, jewelry. How do you measure the weight of a jewel in carats? What rhymes with carrot? Carrot, right? What is the look of a carrot growing out of the ground? Orange. Big orange thing sticking up out of the ground. Okay. More than half the people in this room got that answer. If I'd done it in French, we wouldn't get the same answer. If we didn't eat carrots in this society, we wouldn't get that answer. I asked this in Australia. A lot of people came up with cabbage, because it's a tradition to drink cabbage soup at Ayers Rock. Okay? You get your mind thinking in different patterns. And so this question had nothing to do with Australia, and yet we as a culture came up with the same basic answer. So my message to you, don't believe that you can be creative on the drop of a hat. Force yourself to think creatively. Necessity is not necessarily the mother of invention. It's a pretty good stimulus to get you thinking because you have to. But if you can think of creative ways to be creative, I encourage it. Thanks very much for your time, and that's how the brain works.